Ah, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome. It is a drowsy day, a drowsy day. Coding day, but still drowsy day. Hey there, Mio. Bit sleepy. And not the sort of like, I was sleepy since I got up, just spontaneously sleepy. Is what it is, though. We gotta do what we gotta do. Checking in with the kitties, we do have Ember and Sky all smushed together there, across from the keyboard. And then we have Sammy on the bed, Mason as well. I think that's Mason. Molly is down beside the chair. And Sherbet is watching TV. Yeah. Yeah, you can just see him dart over there briefly. TV definitely success. You can see the remnants of the old chair at the top of the play area there. It is now a cat bed. That is the back of the chair, the part that completely detached. Sleepy. Alrighty. Last time we were working on the decision tree. Goal of this thing is to control the flow of our program. This kind of thing is also used for driving mobs in games, or just general behavior of computer-controlled entities and such. Same general. Hold on a minute. There we go. We are coding day today. I want to make sure that we're getting a couple of these in here on the regular. If for no other reason than, I want to make progress, and we make slow progress. We will be continuing to game this week. There will be more stuff, We have a lot of games to finish and a lot of games to start. But for now, coding. If you look, the number on the stream is the stream number that we've been working on this project. It's not the only time we work on it, but we primarily do like coding on the stream. I'm hoping the same thing, Mio. Wouldn't be the first time. We had one stream of this was Urban Myth Dissolution Center, which is one of the ones we have to revisit. We have to return to. But if I get sleepy enough, I start to lose like a second or a fraction of a second on the regular. So it won't be like full fall asleep, but it will be like moments of time go missing. Okay, so what we started to do is we started relaying the delta along, and we pass in a result. I'm sorry, we get a result out of it. And the result is either a failure, a busy signal, like it's doing something, it's still operating. I do love Canon and D. So if it's busy, it is currently doing something. That doesn't mean that it will react any differently, but a busy is a took action signal. So this is the order of precedence. If it says it failed, this is there was a problem message. If it said it's busy, that could result in anything, but that node is currently, or that node or its children are currently doing something. We did something, past tense, or nothing happened. So we were setting up this structure here where the result by default is going to be nothing. So this is where we're putting it together. By default, the result is nothing. Then we go through and we get a sub-result for each one of these nodes. And that sub-result is going to be compared with the current one. If we already have a fail result, then what we'll do is keep that. It doesn't matter what the result is if we already have a fail result. But because it's a concurrent decision node, we're going to go through all of them. We're just taking the dominant reply here. You don't even know if there is going to be one, or that you are going to do it, even or that it exists and you don't know if you are actually going to do it. Then working. There isn't like a portal or something you can use to find out? So if it isn't already failure, we're going to check. If it's going to be a failure, we record that. If it's not going to be a failure and it isn't already, we check if is it already working. If it's already working, then we stay there. If it's not already working and the sub-result was working, we take that. Otherwise, if it's a success, we keep that. So this is constantly the pattern, is we look at one and say, is it already set to the most important, the current most important one? If it isn't, will it be? If it won't be set to that, then we check the next most important one, on and on. Okay. So this is concurrent node. Priority node is effectively the same thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to encapsulate the result. And what we're looking for is a non-nothing when it's a priority. Okay, so what we need then... Yeah, we have concurrent and we have priority. So this is where we're going to add a method to take our current and the proposed and get a reply out of it. No, actually, it's less complicated than that. Yeah, as soon as result doesn't equal nothing, we're done. So in priority, the order does matter. So we're iterating over them in a forced order. And we'll stop if we run out of things to check, or if our result isn't a nothing result. So it's okay that we keep stamping it here. Yes. Yes, robot cat. Even the tail. Have you seen the whole Avatar? I know a lot of folks haven't seen the full Avatar, or at least with any frequency. Big stompy boots. There you go. Canonically about 4 feet tall. I think 120 centimeters. This should give us our basic tree. This is the structure of the tree. Everything inherits from a decision node and gives a result. So then we would want 4 feet tall, yes. I'm just a little guy. Sherbet is getting head scratches. He is very particular. He's also a don't mess with my whiskers cat. Some cats are less touchy about their whiskers. Some of them are more tolerant. Sherbet is in that, like, don't even bump my whiskers territory. It's that time of the year when they're shedding a lot, so I try to make sure to get that, really, you gotta really work your fingers down to the skin, you know? Helps pull some of the loose fur free, kind of break that up, but also gets it's good to get the kind of oil down to the skin through the fur. It helps you break that up so they don't get as they're less prone to mats and whatnot. I haven't put the new chair together yet. So Sherbet is on my headrest, but there's way less room for him up here, so he's a little more precariously balanced. Also concerned that this chair doesn't have as much counterbalance, I guess. So him being on there is a significant strain on the the stability of the chair. clean his chin a little bit. Just a moment here. You let your chin get all greasy, bud. If I don't clean it now, you'll be really upset later. I know. Betrayal. The worst betrayal ever. There. That was terrible. You gotta watch out. Some of them will... They'll get like grease from their food or something. It'll get trapped on their chin, especially kind of between the lower jaw, that little dip there, and it can build up. Then, you know, oil and whatnot gets trapped under it, and it just gets nasty. So you gotta catch it earlier so that they don't get like, you know, acne and whatnot. Hey, what, Mia? All right, let's see. This is a... This one's gonna be a bit fiddlier, but I have an idea. If I accidentally ignore the cats, Ember gets clingy. She will come and demand attention. She'll get right up in your face and get attention. Sammy will yell at you. And more recently, she is willing to kind of climb up on you to get attention. Molly is similar. She's a little less aggressive about it, but she will climb up on you if she wants attention. She's also a tripline cat, so she will run over there and like rub against your ankles and whatnot and flop over on your feet. So she is a trip and fall hazard if you ignore her too much. Sky gets up in your face and makes mischief if he gets ignored. Like he'll throw stuff off shelves, that kind of thing. Sherbet will just stare at you. Like he'll get a lot closer by and will just stare at you. Mason will like paw at you and cry. How do we store off a method? Somebody that swings through the channel is a real fan of crows. They are big and intimidating, but I think... Are crows the really intelligent ones? Or am I thinking ravens? It's one or the other. check something real quick here. Quite. Yeah, there's a degree of audio mimicry. There is, there are lots of indications of things like crows mourning. There are markers of crows holding grudges, and those grudges being communicated to other members of their colony over generations. I'm looking up some code here, seeing what options I have. Okay, that should do it. Function takes a double and returns a decision node result. Yep, you'll also see things like crows actively provoking other animals to do things for them. Relatively robust tool use, that kind of stuff. They are amongst the animals that are good ways to help people reassess their understanding of what is a thinking creature, you know? Because a lot of the things that people tend to deploy as kind of goalposts, things like tool use, communication, emotion, memory, all kinds of things like that, animals do exhibit. Octopi are another one. They are very they are very clever animals. They exhibit a lot of capabilities and evidence of learning. But that can be a big factor, is understanding which things, you know, that are things they have a reason to remember, as well as accounting for the pace of their thinking. So sometimes you'll see videos of like dogs or cats using buttons with like human words recorded. So the animal pushes the button and it calls out a word. And you'll see those where they are pressing those buttons and forming kind of crude sentences. But a lot of them either cut moments or like speed it up, because you'll see that they'll press one button and then they'll pause for a while, and you can hear the gears turning as they figure out, okay, then this button. They can remember these things, and they have a reason to remember them. They there is a definite connection between what they're using the buttons for and what the result might be. And often it goes beyond just am hungry, give food, But that doesn't mean it comes swiftly. Is that, root around in your documents folder until you find the one labeled that particular goal, and then root around through the documentation for that goal to find the first step, then the second step. So public action decision node takes a function. Think you'll survive the zombie apocalypse, and if so, how will you do it? Probably not. I would suspect that there might be a period where it would work out okay, just because I'm not in a densely urban area. But there is always the possibility of a random encounter, as well as loss of our food and medicine infrastructure. The one of the there are a lot of elements that people will focus on, making weapons and that kind of thing, but there's also what if you get a scratch or a cut, and not even from a zombie, you are preparing food and you mildly injure yourself. In current society, all of the tools to make that what amounts to a very minor injury, something easily dealt with, are available to us. Whether that extend up through ambulance, or if it's just getting a couple of stitches. But if you don't have access to that kind of thing, those can turn, just a minor cut can go lethal. Hey there, Matt, welcome. We're doing some chatting code today. Click, override, execute. Decision node result. Result is equal to decision node result dot nothing. Equal to action if it exists. I think we invoke the function delta. And hello, 00. Plans for what game I'm making or deciding on the fly? A little bit from both of those columns. I have a general plan for what we're doing, like a focused goal. And thanks for swinging through me. I'll have a good rest of your day. But things change substantially as we go. We're making a survivor style game. Uh, Other things that might be like shared lineages, your kind of Binding of Isaac, that sort of thing. But key influences that we're working from are Vampire Survivors and Noida. So, swarms of monsters hold out, but additionally, um, constructed weapons as opposed to upgrades or just stat boosts. So you will apply altered behaviors to it. And the idea being that you construct a better weapon, not that you just fundamentally make it better by leveling it up, kind of thing. Um, for Noida, let me show you where we are, or I can show you what we're talking about here. So one of the key aspects of Noida was building a wand, building kind of a spell to fire. And you would go kind of left to right down a list of little modules, and those would either take actions or modify subsequent actions. So by default, you see this little silvery mouse thing. Its base behavior is to pick a target and kind of steadily home in on that target. But I can change that behavior by adding these little modules, like it fires 3 a second now, or it will move in an S curve in addition to its existing behavior. Here, let's clear the field a little bit. I use the the code for the walls isn't foolproof. We are delaying fixing that until we get to other stuff. So right now it's emitting a whole bunch of them at once. But all of them are still exhibiting the base behavior that they move towards their target. If we reduce the number, then we can put in the S curve. Still 3 to the 4th being generated at once. But once there are no longer actual targets, it gets easier to see what they're doing. So they have the S curve behavior happening. We'll change that to just a zigzag, so it is effectively a 90-degree arc with their direction pivoting left and right along those lines. So we get these much sharper corners that they make while still trying to turn towards this eternal target here. Or we make them orbit, so they will be pulled to stay at a particular radius around the character. So we move away from the mass. this kind of thing. So that's what we're going for as far as gameplay. Um, oh, disconcerting. That shouldn't happen. That was a shader shutdown error. Oh, we'll get back to that one. Okay, so what we're going to do with this is when we create it, we create a reference to a method. And we take whatever that method is and deal with it accordingly. This does create a presumption of behavior in other things, but we can add an intermediary. It could also just have very specific nodes. We'll start with this one, though. Oh, no, no, no. Okay, so there's a couple of types of these. There are going to be some that would have a Boolean wrapper for them. Yeah. We could nest this pretty substantially, and we might still ultimately do that. So for example, I might have a node here. These action nodes can actually turn into parts of a decision tree here. So we could have a condition where, like, these are meant to be endpoint nodes, these decision nodes, or these action nodes, where we get to this and it does a thing. But there's also conditionals where it is, if this is the case, continue. Otherwise, it will return a do nothing, like this node didn't do anything. Because it couldn't. It was not allowed to. So that would actually be something that is at a very high level in decision node, is a check to see if it should run that node. So the question becomes, do I want to actually make a whole bunch of very specific conditions and nodes so that I can carefully tailor them, or do I want to try to be fancy? And I feel like being fancy here is just going to cause problems. Nyanites are... they are the precursor to me. I am a Nyanotype. The Nyanites are the catbots. They are boxier looking little guys. So here, let's put this somewhere visible. You should be able to see this in a moment. The little guy in the emote there is a Nyanite. Little boxy robot. you can see in some of my older streams and whatnot, the Nyanite in use. As the original product of the Catbot Corporation, the product after which the company was named, they originally appeared in the broadcast. Zindex, comments in the code are for me to remember or to help me as I'm just plotting it out and writing it. This is a solo project, so sometimes it's just for organizing. A lot of times it's just for organizing my thoughts. Most of the stuff ends up being self-descriptive. It's kind of necessary because there's a whole lot going on. But most of the structure lives in my head. But welcome. How would we want to do this? I could just put the conditional here, but I feel like having a conditional node or as a part of group decision nodes, that when they execute, they check their conditional first. Yeah. Because it's not that an action node would do that. Yes, okay. Yeah, I use a combination for trying the, okay, this is what I'm going to do, start filling it in. Folder structure helps a lot. Can I do an expand all? To some extent, it's good that I can't do an expand all. Yeah, so there's a lot going on. That's on top of things like handling of JSON. These are all the data structures, like the actual objects in the game. These are, it says .game data, but they're CSV files effectively. How long have I been working on this? Quite a bit. You can get an indication of it. We are on stream 182 of this process. I would say at most we do a coding stream 2 to 3 times a week. Again, at most. You know, like once to twice a week would be a safer bet. So we're not moving super fast on it. We would make a lot more progress if I also went heads down on it off stream. But this is a very casual, let's all just learn kind of thing. Lots of chat, lots of talking through what we're up to and why. We don't want it to be a fail. But otherwise, it ends up being the exact same thing. It needs to pass a result. I think it should ultimately be a true false, but... Ugh. I feel like we might need... Yeah. I think we're gonna need to be a little more blunt with this operation. Like virtual... Boolean. Decision tree folder. Okay. That's what we're working on right now. The intent of decision tree, we are deriving this from a data or a coding pattern that is often used for controlling entities in a game. So, like, how do I want a guard to patrol? Like, what is the flow of logic for that? So you create a tree of checks and behaviors for them to follow. It's a coding pattern for a decision tree, a series of questions that you ask and say, like, okay, is this true? If this is true, do this thing. Okay, if I did that thing, do I continue doing other things? That kind of stuff. Yep, Matt, we've been through several fundamental rewrites, a whole lot of graphical rewrites, and physics rewrites. Just all kinds of stuff. We started this project using purely Godot, and we are now using almost purely C#, with Godot acting as the graphics and like the core code heartbeat. It's also letting us do shenanigans like shaders. How do we want to do this? Since this is just a broad node here, Okay, so by default, we're going to say if check condition's not a good name. Check condition implies we are finding out if we should check the condition. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for joining there, Zindex. I appreciate it. Interesting. It propagates across both chats. Oh, wow. It does fully propagate across both chats. But thank you. Thank you. Always appreciate the support. What do we call this? That's still not a great term. There we go. I'll execute children with delta and say result is equal to decision node result is equal to not that. Okay, so with a decision node, with a group, we're always going to check the condition first. A group decision node is the core entity or the core class inside of the whole tree. A majority of them are going to be group nodes. Each group node may or may not have a decision associated with it, or a condition. That is our should execute. The parent class is never meant to be implemented. We can just call this abstract. So this will happen. You have to implement these to properly do it. We can actually make this virtual. There we go. This one has to do something. Okay, so we'll set these up. You create one, you add child nodes to it. Then when we call execute on it, hey there, Key, thank you for resubscribing. You are at 3 months, 3 months. If you're curious, folks, there are 3 streams going on. So you may notice me talking to somebody that you can't see in the particular chat. There's the 2 YouTube formats and then Twitch. That's right. Alternately, you can just believe that I'm talking to the voices in my head. Often chat has the same vibe as that sort of scenario. Okay, so setting up the check is going to be one thing. Then, oh man. This is going to be a fiddly one. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here and be right back. Yeah, be back in a moment. And we're back. Wish there was a better way to contain Twitch ads. Pretty much the only method is action on the part of the viewer or having a relatively long advertisement each hour that is unreliable in its starting time. Anyhow. Fiddly. Okay. So if it's conditional, we have the concept of a condition to check. There you go. Mason's being a nuisance. He's got a fish hook. And sadly, it is on the paw that he uses to bat at my side to get my attention. I am very slowly poking at a program that is going to turn into kind of command and control for my stream. But there's a lot of moving parts for that. Some of those moving parts are in order to drive moving parts. All right, so even though I've set it up this way, it still creates the problem of knowing... Oh, no. I can still have it function that way. Because... Okay, so a group decision node specifies that execution is to check if the condition passes, and if it does, run the child nodes. So then we go into concurrent, and the execute here is not that. This is execute children, which is a lovely name. Group decision node. Just so. We do the same thing in here. So this code gets run if the decision passes. And in order to make specific ones, things like the physics is ready decision node, what we'd be doing is overriding the check and making a action node specifically for that. Now, I could make them generic by having methods that I would define inside of it to say, like, this is the wrapper method for checking if physics should run. But I feel like making specific nodes to account for that might make the code more maintainable. Because then I'm not hiding things behind a bunch of, like, free-floating methods hiding around places. This should give us all of the parts we need to move into the actual doing. Okay. Let's get a commit on this. Okay, save state obtained. We need the game loop. Ready, it's physics process. Okay, we get how much time has passed. Start step into that. Game time passed is going to move along to the world. That's the level. We need the actual game management. Isn't that actually a level though? Yeah. Where did I put that? Okay. Okay, so we go into base world state. We get the time has passed in the game. We determine if we should continue. If we do, we're looking at world start step, and world steps done are the operative ones here. Then in our should be in our collision logic here. We should have some ons for so start step and end step. Okay. So this is where we're interested. These are the key places that we're interested in double checking. So during the step for the time passing, we can actually go in and say, is it time for another world step? If it's not time for another world step, then we don't do the world step stuff. But we'll still run the game step stuff that needs to happen. So this would be a check that says, is the game step ready? I'm sorry, is the world step ready? If the world step's ready, then we'll proceed into it. Is physics ready? If physics is ready, great. We're currently not doing anything with busy, but we could. Busy is just an immediate indicator that we have some sort of result. We can just use that to say, yeah, we have a result, but it isn't explicitly done. So we don't proceed with the other things. For the most part, when we're doing a check as far as, is this, like, did this step complete, then what we're looking for is an explicit succeed. Anything else implies it didn't. Well, tells us it did not succeed. So either it did nothing, which might be okay. It did something, it succeeded. It is doing something which has not yet succeeded. Or it has expressly failed. If it ever fails, that's a problem, because that is we attempted to do something but did not actually do it for any number of reasons. So in our collision manager, we need the concept of it's kind of a collisions ready marker. And that is an opportunity for us to say, are we on the stage where we check for those? If collisions are ready, then we'll do that. Yeah, this sequence is a priority list. If physics is ready to go, we do physics. And then we can pass into the rest of the logic. If physics isn't ready for any reason, if it does not pass, we do not continue. Yeah, it could return busy if it's still working. We want a succeed. So we have the idea of we're working on physics now. That is the step that we're on. Then the next step just a moment here. Thinky. Yeah, conditionals are group nodes, actions are do a thing. Okay. So what is our actual sequence here? This is currently not a primary profession index, but I have worked professionally in development across a couple of spaces at various places in the kind of in the org chart, as well as a couple of spots in the stack, you know. I have programmed academically and professionally aside from this project. But this is something that I've wanted to do, is make a game, like do an independent project, make a game, that kind of stuff. Additionally, this is just overall a coding learning experience. It's learning a more extensive C#, learning Godot, that kind of thing. So we come into physics process. This is the heartbeat of the app. We can have a similar one for just process, but for now, let's consider physics process. For reference, for those unfamiliar with Godot, process is screen updating. So that is anytime something like the screen updates, that is a process call. Physics process is a separate loop from that. Generally, you make that a separate thread. There's a toggle for that. And that is called at most X times a second. Whereas rendering is often happening very frequently and can bog down based on performance, you try to call physics very regularly, like at a fixed rate kind of thing. So I might say update physics X times a second, like 60 times a second or something. So it will try to come through and pass a delta value, the time since the last frame, of exactly 1/60th. That's where we want to be. But not everything can necessarily be done in the physics portion. Like coming along to the next render step could be useful for us. We'll see. Okay. Hey there, Posh. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so let's do... This is kind of a notepad. I should start a new one. Nope, just named that. Nope, Newt is the name. The mechanist is effectively a job title, an anachronistic word referring to somebody that makes robots or automatons or automation things. Relatively soft. It is a the hair is a synthetic material. Has kind of a fiber optic effect to it. That's why it's a little blue at the end. There is a bit of light that can go through it. I can glow in the dark. It's a questionable utility, but an ability I have. But for the most part, the while it is adorable, the ears and the hair also serve as sensory arrays. The hair antenna is an antenna. The eyes are largely cosmetic. There are a lot of elements of the prototype form that have been damaged as a part of standard testing processes and nothing else at all, entirely because of standard testing processes. Unfortunately, direct repair of the nanotype body is impractical and it is generally advised to return your robot to the factory for a replacement instead of attempting any sort of repair. Yes, Newt is my name. So we have the idea of as a domestic assistant robot, it can be useful to be able to sample food in similar. So there is a functional tongue and the ability to consume things. The ability to bite through things is actually useful in various ways. As you note, it can be useful as a cutting implement. It is advised that there is not actually a stomach mechanism, but a complicated matter disintegration system in the throat, and the teeth are incredibly sharp and capable of cutting through most materials. So, organic objects should generally avoid the mouth of a nanotype. Good luck with the QA review. One always has to appreciate when that actually still happens at an organization. Pretty much. Think of it as kind of a combination of a monowire and a blender. It slices, it dices, it renders things down to component elements. No, but it can be useful to use those trace chemicals for the purposes of other utilities. No USB port, but we can draw upon the power grid through the tail plug, which is kind of a terrible way to say it, but I have a charging cable for a tail. Heavy duty. It's the sort of port that you would use to charge like an electric vehicle. So a high voltage outlet or similar. The plug is highly adaptable, but, you know, we are limited based on things like fuse boxes. The heart is the central location for the nano fluid, which is the yeah, kind of the power source. Yeah, it's totally the power source. Okay, so if it's running, we can't retrieve it. In general, the current structure is as soon as we would check again, we should retrieve it. So that'll be on the next cycle. But if we can retrieve it, we can get those results. Then we... trace elements can be used as part of the process to refresh the nanofluid, but organic matter, especially flesh, is generally something that is... It voids the warranty. Yeah, that's what it is. It voids the warranty. Any sort of rupture or leakage of nanofluid should be immediately reported to Catbot Factory, and then potentially Catbot Factory will then report it to things like disaster recovery or in the EPA or perhaps the CDC. In general, the electrical components are very limited in that it can reduce the ability to do things like send processing to the eyes, but loss of power does not mean loss of functionality to the nanotype, nor would the damaging effects of an intense electromagnetic discharge, though there could be other side effects. Hey there, Jose. Is it Jose? I feel like I asked that question last time. Oh. We are currently in a position where we're attempting to figure out... I'm trying to suss out what bit of code should come next. We have the guts of the decision tree set up. We have the nodes that we need. Now I need to figure out... we have the high-level nodes that we need. Now I want to figure out what the actual sequence of node checks should be each time. Nah, those are easy to find aftermarket. This is C#. Most of the code is in C#. Lua or a similar animal might be something that we look to add in later. We're using Godot. I actually prefer Godot over Unity, both for consumer ethics scenario concerns, as well as Godot is faster to keep up to date on things like the compiler. So, like, a problem I ran into when I was poking at Unity to see if I wanted to try to use that was that they were sometimes like a full version behind on the mono compiler, the thing that compiles the C# code. So there would be whole swaths of features that you couldn't use until they caught up on that. And given their behavior over the past several years, I don't really trust them to stay up to date or stable in that regard. They seem to have other priorities, you know? Yep, virtual machine can let you do that kind of thing. I have personally, the Java virtual machine can lead to some fiddliness as far as like end user consumption. There is you have to make sure the virtual machine is properly given the proper amount of priority and memory to handle everything that's running, kind of stuff. But that's not a huge failing, you know? Java is a solid option. It's a comment that Unreal is the worst engine. I don't know if it's the worst engine so much as I'm going to call it the most robust engine. And like all programming, the more powerful and capable it is, the easier it is to screw up. Like C++ and its siblings are very powerful languages. Assembly is a very powerful language. But if it is part of that power is that it exposes more low-level concepts, and it's easy to break things using low-level stuff. When people ask about getting into programming, I generally say don't start with something like C or C++, but once you're moving along and you're looking at kind of learning coding fundamentals, looking at references for C and C++ can be useful because those references will include examples of the low-level interactions that you're technically doing in higher-level languages. Like in C#, I just make an array. Just, hey, create a new array object. Great. In C++, you actually have to allocate that memory and treat it correctly and release it correctly. Higher-level languages do that for you. And that's great. You lose some control. I lose fine control. I don't have... I can't decide the exact structure as easily. I can't control garbage collection as easily. But I don't have to, and not having to is great. That said, despite the fact that I went out of my way to use this kind of language, I'm also doing this kind of nonsense. This is, it's technically through Godot. Like it is a layer slightly above regular shader language, but it's still effectively GL shader language. This is how I do collision detection. This is a shader that runs on this is a shader that I run manually on the GPU. I only coded in C++ for a few years in an academic setting. As far as C Sharp, over a year now, primarily in this project. I've done Java professionally. I've done some Visual Basic professionally. All over the place. When you're doing programming, you generally do whatever they do at the place that you're doing it. Is it Agagrim? We're going to say Grim for now. But welcome either way. So we've sent the physics results in that. Physics is a prerequisite for the world step to complete, though. Okay, so if physics is done, we can move into the next world step, which requires that enough time has passed. Then, once we have once we've completed a world step, YouTube still using, yeah. I do wish YouTube would just use the aliases and not the handles. There are a lot of people that made the handles some time ago, and there is definitely a disruption in identity that has happened since they switched over to trying to force the handles. Okay, at the physics part, we're asking, is it still processing? For the most part, this will never... if we get to the top of a fresh step, if physics is processing, we will go again. I'm sorry, we will read it then. So if physics is not processing, then we'll send the physics messages and have those take whatever effect they need to. And that means physics is now done. Then we're going to look at the next simulation step. And the next simulation step requires enough time has passed. So that will be another decision check is, has enough time passed? If it has, then we will... Then we send the world time event, which is everything does its thing. And then, for the most part, we start physics. So, with the decision tree, we want to be able to iterate on it multiple times. We just keep calling it until we get a busy result. If it's busy, then we break out of it and we loop again. And Ember has come to sit with me. Delay by cat. As we go, let's see. We have the 3 on the bed. We have the 2 siblings and Sammy. Sky is getting a drink. Ember is on my shoulder. Where is Molly? Ah. So, top side of the play area, which has the little air hockey table, I can probably rearrange things a little bit to get that on camera. There is the kind of gray and dark brown thing is the back of my dead office chair that Molly is currently using as a place to sit. Okay. So the actual flow would be to iterate on the tree. And we're going to go until we get a busy result or a nothing. If it does nothing, we're clear. If it fails, there's a problem. If it's busy, we're done. But if it succeeds, we try again. And we keep going until there is a ending response. We didn't do anything this pass, or we're busy doing something. Effectively, those are the same reply as a result. Is saying you did nothing is effectively the same as saying you are currently doing something and need time. That is, break the loop. Okay. So that means in here... Ember is expressing her content with the situation by flexing her forepaws. She is comfy and happy. But one of her forepaws needs a trim. So when she is happily and adorably flexing her forepaws, she is also sinking a claw into my my collarbone here and kind of wiggling it. It's adorably painful. No urgency to go get the trimmers or anything like that, but so we get the result. So we can if I stop petting her to do something like type, she will stand up and adjust her position because part of petting her is cradling her properly. So, yeah, right there I tried to move. Okay, so we continue as long as there is a successful completion of the tree. Effectively, action was taken. And we just keep doing that until we're done with that. Okay. That works, that works. We can have the same thing in process eventually, but for the time being, no. It can't be a static, so when we are creating this thing, when it comes into existence, this is when we invoke the services to get our various elements here. We can also do it here. So as soon as this happens, we now have we have things in the world. We won't invoke anything that we do until we get a physics call. So it should be after this that we set it up. Like all of this stuff doesn't really need to be here. This one does. But these don't really need to be here the way they are. So it would be this one. And even these need to go away eventually. Okay. Ow. My back. Beverage. Yeah, it's during the ready that we should be able to do this. Okay, so that's the physics process decision tree. And we're going to say physics process decision tree is equal to new decision node. It's not really a new decision node, though. This will be a priority decision node. So we're going to do the first thing that needs to be done each time this goes through. We'll just continue to do that. First one to win does it. Depth first search. So this would be okay. So when we check if there are physics results, we expect that to be busy or nothing. So it will probably busy if it kicks off. So it started something with physics. So if physics is ready, it's going to reply a success if it gave the results. Then If we continue to this, this is world step. This one is going to be fiddlier. Because world time is not passing, or game step time is not passing right now. Hey. This guy picking on Ember. Ember she's small, so she can be pushed around by most of them. Sky occasionally tries to bully the other cats because he's bigger and more aggressive than most of them. So because Ember is small, she generally avoids confrontation. If she were even a little bit bigger, the other cats would not mess with her. She can get fierce. Isn't that right? Yeah. Now, we could be tallying this inside of the game, in that the world is getting the game time update message constantly. So that might be where we need to have this, is that broadcasts separate of this check. Because if physics is taking a long time, it's okay for us to get right into the next world step. Ideally, that is not the case. Part of this whole optimization is because we want to optimize the physics step. That is where a vast majority of our time is being spent, is what immediately follows this portion here. And that is passing all of the processing along to the entities. The collision portion of that logic is non-trivial, but we're still spending a majority of the time figuring out how the things move. And that portion is harder to pare down because every entity is an individual. We can't just algorithmic we cannot predetermine where they are. It's an advantage that most like shooters and bullet hells have when it comes to emitting projectiles, is that the path of a projectile is deterministic. If you know where it started, you know how it flies, and you know how much time has passed since it started, you know exactly where it is. Now, if projectiles can bounce off of things, and similar, if they interact with their environment aside from, I hit this object, it gets fiddlier. But you can still like adjust for that. You can still kind of restart their movement. It's only when they have a persistent state that they become expensive, and everything has persistent state currently. And there's not really a great way to avoid that. Yeah, sadly, the Twitch ads thing is still. It is a. There is really not a good choice to avoid the advertisements. it's either pre-rolls and nobody wants to watch, or it's regular ads and people get bored with that. I might have to switch to pre-rolls again, since those at least don't interfere on the regular. But I feel like we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't there. Okay, so we need to increment how much time has passed outside of that. We can still do the time passed event in order to inform the service that time has passed. I'm sorry, that game time has passed. Like program time passed. Real, quote unquote, real world time passed. Not really, because even the physics process can eventually get choked up. But if we're updating that every time it comes around, then we should still get an accurate picture. Pushing some buttons, pushing buttons. Buttons pushed. Catnip dispenser. I do have a variety of catnip distribution vectors available. I haven't actually done this on stream. Well, that's a fresh one. I don't need to use the fresh one yet. That'd be a waste. It's catnip deployed. Okay, so it is a decision node. It is going to be a group node that does the physics ready check. And the physics ready check needs to be something that probably interacts. Right now it's the shader collision manager, but I think it. What was I even going to do with physics state? To mix physics done and. Okay, physics state is physics done and physics start. These will become largely irrelevant as we're proceeding through this, but hey, here we go. We can have a check on it that is. Oh, we're going to accomplish this. Okay. So it is. Yeah, right there. Ember is hoovering up catnip, and Sherbet got too close. She took a swing at him. It's okay, baby. Yeah. So when the world step ends, that's when the physics system can say, hey, I need to run next time we do this. The nice thing about this is I can incorporate breaks whenever I want to with this structure. Is instead of reporting that it did nothing, it can report instead of reporting a success, it can report a nothing, and that breaks till the next physics process. If I really wanted the system, it's Ember is the big catnip enthusiast, above all of the others. Sky is like, this is nice and all, but yeah. Think, think, think. So we don't need a message for this one. This is... So messages go out during this. So it's possible that we're still busy when this comes around. There is something to be said for this approach in that we may ultimately need to put the compute shader on the render thread in order to be able to access a callback. But I don't know if we can actually do it that way. We may still need to rely on the idea of give it one physics step and just queue up a bunch of shaders together. That may be necessary. Molly has detected catnip. So right now what we're doing is we're kind of puzzling over the sequence of events. We need... I think we have the breakdown that we need. Now it is adding the proper checks. So we need to ask the physics server, or the collision manager effectively here. Are you ready? I'm sorry, it's... Are you still busy? If it's still busy, then we return busy here. We can't continue. If it is done with its processing at that point, we do the processing next. currently, how this would happen is we would get to the top of the loop and we would say, is it ready? It would say yes, and proceed to send the messages. So what we can probably do here is our conditional check here is physics processing. So right now, it shouldn't. If physics requires another physics processing step under our current model, we have a problem. This general pattern can still work, though. If we say physics processing and it returns busy, we're still busy. This can still work. Yeah. So we'll return success if we get results. Otherwise, we're going to get a busy result. Well, I'm sorry. It'll be success if we got results. If physics was not processing, we'll get a nothing. If, for whatever reason, physics can't be done, it's still busy. Okay, so if we nothing, that lets us move along. So if physics is done, we move on to the world step. And in particular, is the world step ready? Okay, if we get this far, then we're going to be looking at accumulated delta. It doesn't really matter if we block the accumulation of delta during physics process. Ultimately doesn't matter. Because it is very likely that we will... this has to block for more than one step for that to matter. So we'll cross that bridge if we get to it. So we do world time passed, and then we do world step done. It is possible for us to put an intervening step here. We don't need to. Okay, so this should be the entirety of our loop now. So the game's start and end steps don't matter anymore. Yeah, game start step was purely so that the physics server would do its processing. Game time passed purely kicked off world state, but world state only kicks off if physics is ready. So game time passed ceases to be relevant. Game end step ceases to be relevant. Same with game steps done. This one I still kind of like in that the game loop has ended, just like the world steps done is. We're done with anything related to world processing. Little overmarker, but we are going to take a quick break and I will be right back. Okay. So, thinking on it further, it's not even that the world steps are done. We could actually make that explicit if we wanted to. So, we could have a we could explicitly have a start physics now. Action there. So if this condition passes, first we do the world time past events. Run that. Then we run an action that is kick off physics. That is, regardless of anything else that is happening, run physics. I still kind of like the event because it means that physics does not try to update more often than it needs to. That is, if there's already results being processed, it doesn't go to get more. Or it doesn't try to get more. It prevents, I think, some overlap surfaces where we might try to run physics multiple times when it's already busy. We could just ignore that, though. What I'm trying to get to is I want to limit, like, the message structure is useful. We can still use the message structure to say, hey, do a thing. But we also want to limit it down to things where we expect it to be arbitrary. That is, it's okay if any number of things listen to this message. It's not part of the actual flow that explicitly that one does the event at this moment. It is that if you hear this message, you can take action. If we limit it to an action, it means that we control when it can be fired. So if we decide to move when physics starts up to a different spot in the flow, we can. It's not just when this particular event happens. Right now, the primary useful event is world time past. And that is because every entity listens for that. But does it need to? No, we could just iterate over a list. We could decouple that entirely. For the time being, what we're going to do is we're going to start peeling out messages that we don't need to use any longer at all, and then start looking at where we can cut down on the number of messages that we need total. So get rid of the ones we don't need and start then reviewing the ones that we currently need to see if we can get rid of them and just use a direct action. Because this is like get physics. This is a critical step. We make it separate so that it breaks the process and lets us get back around. Sorry, it relinquishes control so that we can get back around and have fresh execution. We're no longer blocking. The world step stage doesn't need to be kicked off by an event. That can be explicit as well. That one will break on a nothing if we have not enough time having passed. Gartic phone. Have I added the Gartic phone intercept minigame yet? Intercept secret messenger chains at certain points to slowly change the message. It reveals where your base is to say a different part of the world map and possibly start wars. No, but that is an interesting concept in general. a bit of the vibe of, I can't remember the name, but there is a tabletop game where you have Dracula and vampire hunters, a la Bram Stoker's Dracula. I believe it is explicitly those, where they are tracking Dracula, and the idea being that Dracula's movements are concealed by a series of cards representing where they moved each time. And if a hunter encounters one of those spots, then you have to reveal, like, this was the spot. So, like, they were just here, kind of thing. But the concept of that sort of situation where you are trying to identify where the target is and them being able to lay down false trail creates that extra bit of mechanic. Is this a fake trail? Even more so if the fake trail is a known thing. So I know that they put down a fake trail. It is apparent, like there are 2 cards in the trail at this point. One of those is fake. And if you take the wrong one, then you're going to be potentially a whole space off and not find the right one, and not know that it was because you took the wrong route. There are gameplay portions of social deduction games that actually stick around that I think are critical. So the core of social deduction games is first, uncertainty, in that you don't know who is doing the thing. So werewolf and all of its children, you know. I think that's the progenitor game. Anyway, you have the concept of there is a group of people that are taking action that you must stop. Every turn, they take an action that essentially ticks the clock forward. You have to stop them in time. Then their goal is to increase uncertainty by sowing misinformation. And the goal of everybody else is to decrease uncertainty by parsing down the data into information. So, like, because this person said this thing, that is inconsistent with this other thing. So there is a falsehood present. We have identified an inconsistency. That is a new data point. Do we have information as a result of that new data? Repeat and repeat. The element, like we were just talking about, the idea of adding in the misdirect, intercepting communication, is an extra layer. And that is where, when people are adding classes and the like to things like Town of Salem, Among Us, Werewolf, all of those, essentially adding character abilities to it, the question becomes, how much uncertainty can this character add or remove? If they can add a huge amount of uncertainty, then that can make the game very difficult for the for one. If they can take away too much or add too much, then it makes it too difficult for one side or the other. So if there is, like, let's say you had a character in Among Us who can identify one of the imposters, just that's their ability. Even if it removes that person from play, that it's a 1-for-1, that is a huge advantage for the crewmates. Because now uncertainty is greatly reduced. There's one less person that can be out there causing problems, that can be out there disrupting things. Alternately, if there is a character there that like blinds everybody, like you can't tell where everybody moved for a protracted period of time at all. So not just like the lights went out, it is a total blackout. Then nobody knows anything in that period. That is a complete loss of data. So every time that fires, that removes a lot of hope for the crewmates. So it is figuring out like how much you want to create. Some of the classics for this kind of thing are so again, in Among Us terms, since a lot of folks will recognize that more likely, the Morphling, the Shapeshifter. So in the Among Us case, they are less mobile, but the ability for the Morphling to take somebody else's place, to act as another person, is a huge uncertainty creator. But the data of the presence of the person being impersonated is still available. And as soon as two of the same person are known to exist, as soon as, you know, we saw Pink here and here at the same time, or they, Pink claims that they weren't there at all, that they were on the other side, and there is some degree of corroboration, ideally or not, then the presence of a Morphling becomes a thing. Like, okay, now we know that there can be duplicates. So identifying where and when duplicates appeared becomes a new vector for identifying a hostile. It's like hearing or seeing a vent close, even if you don't see the person jump into it, is a key determining factor for the presence of a regular imposter. That is both a way to increase uncertainty, where did the being able to move around the map in a way that others can't, greater speed, but also the ability to do that can be telling. If a person was here, but suddenly they're really far away really fast, then did they use a vent, or just is it that other people didn't realize that they had, that how much time had actually passed in the traversal? But uncertainty and creation and removal of uncertainty, that is a core element of those games. Assuming you're not metagaming them like crazy and just having everybody recite everywhere that they went and what they did every single time. But that's not really the spirit of the game. And such games are not the kind of game we're making. But I do like to talk abstract game design now and again. Even for games I don't actively play. Yep, the ability to like permanently swap once. But it's that decision of what does this reveal, and if there's a double color, You have to figure out, you have to be able to not be able to just say, oh, it was red, because red is no longer there, kind of thing. But yeah, there's just all kinds of stuff that you can do with that kind of game. So I kind of like the idea when you have piles and piles of different roles in those, because then the presence of all of those different things is in and of itself uncertainty. Even your allies don't necessarily know what they're working with. That is why as you add more and more jobs, that a lot of them end up having the ability, or at least one character has the ability to essentially knock you out if they guess what your role is. If they figure out who you are, they can remove you. So just the threat of that person existing, even if that ability is not universal in some way, becomes a huge factor. It's if I reveal who I am and can prove it, I have a great deal of power, because I can say, oh no, absolutely, that person is the one. But in doing so, I remove myself. Or I risk removing myself. Hey there, Lore. I'm on a tangent. Well, right now, what we've got is the basic structure for the decision tree in place, and I think the basic hierarchy. So I need a way to determine physics is busy. Like, physics is doing something. There is something to be said, Lunar. If not the particular things, there's something to be said for making the game wildly varied. That a lot of stuff happens, a lot of weird things suddenly occur. Assuming you can make it so that it is not terribly jarring, the transition between gameplay states, rapid different goals actually work in a lot of scenarios. So if we look at like Vampire Survivors, Hollow Cure, that kind of thing, on the regular, there are moments where enemies that don't obey the basic rules, like that happens. That's a minor form of it. You know, suddenly there are enemies that don't obey the normal push-pull. Or there are, like, suddenly there's you know, red get out of this indicators. But if you look at games like Undertale or Deltarune, every combat scene is crawling with mini games. Every opponent has their own little mini game. Boss fights in Deltarune, especially the game show stuff, are pile of different gameplay styles. The trick becomes making it non-jarring. How do you have the transition? Okay. Well, I see the is it is that meant to be vizier or visor or? But yeah, it's having different gameplays and blending them together, different states of the game, is really common. And it becomes, do they actually lead into each other? So you mentioned like XCOM. that's kind of a classic one where you have maintaining the bases and the infrastructure, and then you have the battle map. You do that in all kinds of games. Your level select is your most simple form of that kind of thing. But if you're in the midst of a game and you enter a particular room, let's say in the model that I'm looking at, we're progressing through a couple of rooms, we hit this one, different mini game suddenly. That is a way that could play out. With the current pattern in goals, that would have to be in some way uncommon and would probably result in a new power-up. Like, here's a new modifier token that you have received because you completed the minigame in this room. It's not that, like, I cleared the room and it just drops it or something like that. It's, you beat the minigame, here's the token, and off you go. So, completely different game just happened. Run and gun, suddenly burger time, run and gun, run and gun. Like, Undertale Flowey's fight. Where things are, like, rapidly switching. Even that works. The pace at which that is happening works because it is the feel of the fight is this rapid chaos. Okay, so we need a check for this. That jarring is a fuzzy term there, Lunar. That's the trick, is if the state that you are in is wild and chaotic, then jarring would be suddenly not. Such that the context switch is between something very slow moving and predictable to something that's rapid and not. That, from a gameplay perspective, is trouble because I have to shift modes. I have to hold the controller different. I have to lock in differently. You would often see people say, well, that makes it challenging. It's like, no, that makes it difficult. That means I have to know precisely which frame the slow thing ends at so that I can resume doing the fast thing. Like, that makes it mechanically difficult, you know? But if I'm constantly moving fast and having to think on my toes, then having what you are thinking about rapidly change can still work. But it's very contextual. It's going to be very, very contextual. That is something that you would have to play test into the ground to make sure that it worked right. Okay, so we have a check that I can make for if physics is currently running, which means that there is a flag for it being busy. So a publicly exposed Boolean, essentially, that says, yeah, we're doing physics stuff right now. Then the action we'll do is to try to get results. So this is a perform physics. And we're either going to get our success call, which is we did the physics messages, loop around again. We are processing. Yeah, it would have to be. Yeah. So we do nothing if physics isn't running. So when we call that condition, if it doesn't record a result, it says I did nothing. If we get past the condition, we have to have a success or a busy. If we get a nothing or a fail, that's a weird state. But the caller doesn't really care about that. We can accumulate the delta here and have it be time between fully completed steps. But there isn't really a reason to wait if physics computation is taking us the entire period. So we want to separate that. So if accumulated delta has accumulated enough, then it will eat the remainder. Or I'm sorry, it will consume everything until there is only a remainder left. You get the modulo. We do the world time past event. So anything that needs to deal with that deals with that. This should stay an event. Like, we could just say, hey, entity manager, move forward and have it ripple explicit events off of that. But I think this is just the simulation has moved forward. Then we say, we could have the world steps are done, but I feel like the only thing we're doing there is kicking off physics. So I think having an explicit start physics event, or I'm sorry, call on the collision manager is the thing to do. This file has become contaminated in that it is not the code review file. This is the code review file and thoughts on the decision tree. Like, everything after here is thoughts on the decision tree. But you know what? I think this will be a good stopping point for today. We've already locked into a great deal of me staring at the screen trying to decide how we want to do this. We have some targets, so we'll pick that up next time. Oh, but some progress. We finished up the basic skeleton. We now have a couple of things that we can make to get the proof of concept of this sequence going. The big thing that this will grant us is removing some odd complexity, some tricky complexity from the core loop. We've ended up adding a lot of messages that only serve the purpose of accomplishing this series of events. And with what we've created right here, this will remove like 6 plus different messages and a couple of weird states and replace that with what amounts to 2 questions. Like, are we doing physics? Yes? Okay. Try to do physics. Did that do something? Yeah? Okay. Next, are we doing physics? No? Okay. Do the other thing. And the other thing ends with, and now do physics. If we really wanted to, we could even have another marker on that, because in going into world step, we eat up the accumulated delta. So we don't need to worry about that anymore. The accumulated delta won't be enough for another world step. That means it's time to calculate physics. We are done doing world steps. Once we've done that, we go into a busy state, and if we're in a busy state, we break the decision tree loop and come back around again. Repeat. This is a lot of flexibility. I think we can work with this. The current tricky element will be preventing myself from getting out of control with design flexibility. So, like, I started today looking at the idea of, well, I could have function parameters and we could pass in methods that would be able to handle this kind of stuff generically. But that's going to create issues. If I just have explicit classes for this is the is physics processing node. What is it? It's a group node that is dependent on if physics is processing or not. What's that node? Perform physics. And that node, do the world step, you know? We'll start with that. Explicitly hard-coded flows for now. If it ends up that we get so many of them that becomes a burden, we could revisit that idea. But for now, I want to avoid trying to over-abstract, because one, we constantly do that. And the other is, if I abstract too much, then I'm kind of predetermining what shape I think everything should take, and it might be that trying to cram things into that shape will become a burden. Just hard coding this is how the physics, is physics ready check works means I can have the is physics ready check behave however I want it to. I suspect if I try to go the generic route, I will have wrapper functions on wrapper functions. And that kind of ruins the point. But yeah, well, folks, I hope you had a good time watching with us today. I want to thank Index again. I believe they had said they were stepping away for joining the channel, for becoming a channel member. Always appreciated. But yeah, it's if you'd like to consider supporting the channel, then you can do so through platform-specific means like memberships and subscriptions, as well as other options available through the link tree that can be found in video description and bio. But with that, I hope the rest of your day is good, and I will see you next time.